So destinations together, won't you set me free? I'll take a train, a plane, a big cruise ship, it doesn't really matter to me. Destination people always seem to find the magic and the mystery in this beautiful world. Don't get left behind.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Tom Anderson, and this is Webinar on Wednesday with Destinations Together. As always, a warm welcome to our Zoom listeners and cruise line executives that are tuning in, and happy St. Paddy's Day. With all the encouraging news about vaccinations, coupled with the fact that American Cruise Lines and American Queen Steamship Company are now actually sailing, travel and cruise tourism is happening. Welcome to the fourth and final session of our Sustainable Tourism webinar series, co-hosted with the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, GSTC. During this series, we have covered the key GSTC sectors of sustainable tourism. Randy Durband, CEO of GSTC, set the stage by presenting GSTC's mission and underlining how the cruise industry is also focused on a sustainable agenda with both shipboard operations and destinations. Then we focused on the tour operator path to become GSTC certified before we did a deep dive into the destination stewardship and community tourism. Today's session is focused on hotel operations and the GSTC standards. It's encouraging that 70% of travelers indicate that they would be more likely to select an eco-friendly accommodation. How does the traveler find these places? How do they know that a facility is eco-friendly? Likewise, the GSTC hotel criteria are organized around four main themes: effective sustainable planning, maximizing social and economic benefits for local community, enhancing cultural heritage, and reducing negative impacts to the environment. So, as the travel and tourism industry restarts, it is critically important that all sectors of travel-related businesses have sustainability on their agenda and that these initiatives are funded and in their budget. GSTC provides the standards and performance indicators that hotels should aspire to in an effort to enhance the guest experience, elevate their business, and provide a net benefit to their destination. To help us gain a perspective on today's eco-friendly audience, Larry, will you please post a brief poll? And we kindly ask you all to take a moment to complete it. Today's presentation is hosted by Destinations Together, which is an open platform of relevant information and collaboration to support the tourism industry. It's designed to help everyone connect, collaborate, and find solutions to bridge the gap until how cruise ships and tourism returns to your region. There's a lot to cover in this GSTC hotel focus session. I'll turn this over to Larry to share some important information and then introduce our guest speakers for today's Destinations Together webinar on Wednesday. Larry?
Hey, thanks, Tom. And again, happy Thanksgiving. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. First off, we'd like to recognize our participants from our March 3rd webinar featuring destination stewardship and sustainability. Please check out our website to hear from Kathleen Pittman, President of EGO Community Partners and a core member of the GSTC team, Diane Taylor Williams, Assistant Permanent Secretary of St. Kitts Ministry of Tourism, and Jamie Sweeting, President of Planetera. We spoke about the Global Sustainable Tourism Criteria for destinations and how it defines how communities and visitors can maximize the many benefits from tourism while minimizing negative impacts on destination resources and ways of life. We really appreciated their participation. Check it out if you missed it. All of our webinars are available to you free on our website, www.destinationstogether.com. And don't hesitate to socialize the website with others. Everybody is welcome. Before we begin, let me remind you of a few important housekeeping items. We are recording this webinar and we'll upload it to our website in the next few days. There is a Q&A tab below on your screens. We look forward to getting your questions to pass on to our guest speakers. We encourage you all to vote on the questions listed in the Q&A to help ensure we include the most important ones. Please remember, we and our guests are only providing our opinions and possible sources for further information. We are thankful to all those joining today from around the globe. If it is your first time, we are so happy to have you join us. And if you are returning and have been with us a long time, we appreciate your continued support. Today's webinar is about hotel sustainability and GSTC standards. Randy, please join me as I provide a quick introduction. This session will round out our four-part series on sustainable tourism by looking at contemporary approaches for more sustainable hotels. As with previous sessions on destinations and tour operators, we'll consider the valuable role of applying the Global Sustainable Tourism Council GSTC criteria to the hotel industry. Randy Durband, GSTC CEO, will lead this session along with Ian Corbett, TUI Group Sustainable Business Manager, on the cutting edge of hotel sustainability, which Randy will introduce partway through his presentation. Randy, I welcome you to the webinar today. And with that introduction, I turn the webinar over to you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Let me just maximize screen. Excellent. Thank you, Larry and Tom. Nice to be with you again. And again, I love your opening song. Has everybody been dancing to it? I even jotted down a few of the lyrics this time. I think I need to get all the lyrics written down. So nice to see so many people on the session. Great to be with you. Topic is sustainable hotels and how the GSTC standards, the GSTC criteria can help in that. My presentation is going to be focused really on management issues and talking about sustainability to your stakeholders, your employees, your clients, your business partners. This is not a session on practical tips of how to reduce plastics or reduce your greenhouse gas emissions. There's a lot of opportunities for that, but I think that some core issues of really operating sustainably gets down to governance, management, engagement, and so forth, and that's going to be the basis of what I want to present. First of all, just who are we at GSTC? For those of you who are not familiar, I see many names on the list who know us very well and are quite familiar, but just very quickly, for those of you who are not, in 2005, two UN agencies, UNEP and UNWTO, got together and defined sustainable tourism. And then 2 years later, they, still working together on sustainable tourism policy, created us in 2007. Much of the original funding was from the United Nations Foundation, which put us in their office in Washington, D.C. and gave us our legal registration. But since about 2012, we've been virtual. So we're used to Zoom, other platforms for talking around the world. We have a global organization founded by the UN system, but we're outside the UN system. We're a nonprofit organization. And we were developed first and foremost to create standards for sustainable tourism. And in 2008, we released the first of them. They originally called the GSTC Criteria for Hotels and Tour Operators. At our second revision in 2016, we renamed them because we believe that the standards are guiding principles for any subsector, any type of business in travel and tourism. And then along the way, many of us in the sustainable tourism community really felt strongly that we needed to get the public sector guidance and then more engaged. And GSTC became the resting place for development of public sector standards. And so we call those the destination criteria. But really I ask you to think about the destination criteria in two levels. One is public policy guidance, and then the second is actual guidance for how to manage a destination. Back to the industry criteria. I told you that they were originally called the criteria for hotels and tour operators. And so whereas the criteria, the core standard itself, could serve as guiding principles for any business, since our inception in 2007, we've been intensely focused on providing guidance for the application of those standards, specifically to tour operators and hotels. And if you're not familiar with what standards look like, it's a checklist. We have 42 criteria for hotels and something like 160 some performance indicators to give the detail. Our standard, unlike ISO standards and most standards in the world, our standards are in the public domain, free of charge, available for the free of charge non-commercial use to use our standards. So I highly encourage you to read them, use them for training and awareness. And I have on the screen ISEAL Alliance. It's an international organization that has codes of good practice. And I put that up just to emphasize the point that we adhere to their standard setting code. And we have an incredibly inclusive process in the development and occasional revision of our standards. These are the world standards. We're the keeper of a process. We didn't create these in isolation and in a closet, rather intensive inclusion. We put out thousands of calls to all 6 populated continents, to all sides of the stakeholders, public sector, private sector, NGOs, academia, consultants, everybody who wants. You can come to our website at any time and sign up for formal comment the next time we revise the criteria, or just send us information. It's all on our site. So these are the world's criteria that we manage, which is to say that really they're the best broad definition of sustainability. One of the things that I think we really suffer with in sustainability in general is a lack of awareness. I think if we polled you on what sustainability means, we would get such diverse answers. And if we asked society and travelers, we'd get all sorts of different answers to it, and people prioritize things differently. It's very important for you to think, if you want to think about sustainability broadly, holistically, the starting point is the world standards that we've managed. We've organized them in these 4 pillars, and this is very important to the work and what we do, because we don't look at sustainability purely as environmental issues. Environmental issues are very important, of course, but so too are the social and economic benefits and the cultural issues, both living culture and cultural heritage. And Section A is about management. But I call to your attention the wording on sections B, C, and D. It says maximize the benefits and minimize the negative impacts. Tourism has a tremendous potential and opportunity for doing good, creates many jobs, much economic activity, but when managed inappropriately, it can cause harmful actions. So I encourage you to get to know the criteria, use them, read them. If you, again, we think of them as the best long definition of sustainability, because through that inclusive process, we've condensed the thousands of inputs into 42 elements, which seems like a lot, but people always want us to add more. You could just layer on and layer on and layer on. By the way, people have recently asked, what about health and safety and coronavirus? Well, health and safety is mentioned in the standard. And people asked in the US, the Black Lives Movement that spawned this wonderful discussion we're having, important discussion we're having on the world, that I like. My preference in that is the acronym DEI for dignity, equity, and inclusiveness. And that's very much in our standard in the GSTC criteria, the social side, about non-discriminatory hiring process, policies, and all sorts of social issues. So really the core elements of sustainability are there. Our membership, here's just a partial list. We have members in the public sector, private sector, NGOs, academia, states in the US, major distributors of travel like Booking.com, major hotel chains, including IHG, Hilton. TUI Group is with us, we'll hear from them. NGOs such as WWF, who's really provided us guidance on systems over the course of time, and just goes on and on. I think my friend Richard from Botswana is on the call. Japan Tourism Agency, which is basically the Ministry of Tourism. Again, the list goes on and on. We've got quite a comprehensive list, and not comprehensive, but very rich and diverse list of members that are engaged in applying our criteria. We typically get associated with certification, but I want to emphasize that to operate a hotel sustainably or any business sustainably, using a standard for awareness and for training of all your staff is really essential. So all these businesses are engaged with using the full set of standards to help them define internally what sustainability means by applying those standards, and they apply them in a variety of ways. So we've been very happy to be part of Destinations Together. It's been a wonderful 4 sessions. This is the 4th in a series that we designed with them. And so some of you, I'm sure, have been for various pieces of it. We had really excellent engagement throughout. February 10, session 2 was one of the most watched and rewatched, because there was a lot in this community that many of you are in the cruise community and so forth, and it's been very instrumental what Royal Caribbean and others have done to show preferential contracting for certified tour operators. And then in the third session, we talked about destination stewardship and all good lively sessions, and the recordings are available on the Destination Together website. So today we're going to talk about hotels, and we're going to talk about hotels broadly. And I've asked our friend and colleague at TUI Group, Ian Corbett, if you're not familiar with TUI Group, it's one of the largest travel companies in the world with 150 plus brands. And I'll introduce Ian shortly in a little while as to why he's with us. So thank you, Ian, for joining us. At the first session on January 27th, we asked these questions, and we asked them just now to you. Do you have an active sustainability plan in place? The answer there was, we didn't get the percentages, but more were yes than no, but not by a large margin. And if so, was sustainability in your 2021 budget? And again, a small minority said yes. But I ask you to just kind of reflect upon this a little bit, and we're going to look at the results of your polling here in a moment. If you're on this webinar series, you're probably engaged in sustainability. So the fact that that's a slim majority shows that there's really not a huge amount of business uptake in terms of really having active plans and active schemes. So that's going to be the basis of what Ian and I talk about today in terms of management systems and plans and action. And it's so important. You can't get anywhere if you don't really have a plan and people in place. So let's pause there. I'm going to stop sharing screen. I'm going to ask Larry and Tom to share the results of this poll, and then I'll come back on after.
Thanks, Randy. And again, thank you to all that participated in the poll. Again, the first question, do you have an active sustainability plan in place? We had 55% said yes and 45% said no. If so, is your sustainability plan in your 2021 budget? 55% said yes and 45% said no. How many people are assigned to work on sustainability in an organization? 0 was 28%, 1 to 5 employees was 55, and +6 was 17. So not too bad results. And with that, Randy, I'll turn it back over to you.
And those percentages are about the same, in line with the previous one.
Excellent, very good. I'm going to talk to you without PowerPoint for a little while. Do it the old-fashioned way. So, I think the polls are very telling. Again, the point I just made prior is that if you're on this webinar, you're probably tuned in, and these are just slight majorities of people that really have plans. So I think we have a lot to do to just instill in company cultures to really develop teams and systems. And 55% of you said 1 to 5 people. We talked to a lot of hotels in the world and ask about the sustainability team, and often it's one person. Or we look at some lovely plaques on the wall and ask a general manager about those plaques, and it says, "So we got to talk to my engineer sustainability person." You know what? That's not going to cut it. We're going to get more sustainable hotels and more sustainable world through far greater stakeholder engagement and staff engagement. It really takes a team. Sustainability is big and broad. I think we should also think about sustainability as simply good management. I really hope that 30 years from now, we don't even use the word sustainability. So much of what we're talking about and what's in our standards is really good management, long-term planning. So much of where we failed, I think, in businesses and in humans is short-term thinking. And quarterly financial results are not sustainable in terms of, short-term thinking doesn't allow very well for long-term planning. We need systems in place, and we need plans in place, we need people in place. So your team needs to be more than one person, not just the HR director or the engineer. We need a team. So let's think about hotels in the world. 300,000 plus hotels, large, small, all sorts of hotels. If you think in your mind's eye of hotels, just a huge range of them. In terms of sustainability, we see an incredibly broad range of movement towards sustainability. Many of those 300,000 are doing very little. Some of them are doing a few things. We've had tremendous movement in recent years on plastics. Suddenly hotels had to scramble in the last 2 or 3 years and get rid of plastic straws. Well, that should just be a starting point. And it shouldn't just be about straws or reusable water bottles. We need to remove all sorts of plastic through all aspects of our lives. Or we might talk about carbon emissions and energy. And those are very important issues. But we really need to talk about all of those issues. You know, if you think about plastics, few of us even knew until recent years how much plastics we're ingesting in our food from what's gone into the oceans. How many of us knew about that 5 years ago? I knew about it 10 years ago living in San Francisco, knowing some people who were working on studying it, but even 10 years ago isn't very long. You know, we've been ingesting it for decades. So, you know, what else are we going to discover? What else is the consumer going to be more aware of tomorrow or next year? You really need a holistic approach. We have to go beyond, you know, just kind of thinking sustainability as 1 or 2 or 3 issues. You got to look at the breadth of the standard, the GSTC criteria and the issues, and start working on all of them. It can be daunting, but you have to put a team in place, you have to put a management structure in place. We really need a holistic approach. You know, in the 1990s, do you know why the towel policy is so much in place in a lot of hotels in the world? The reason is Prince Charles of the UK, who many of you may know, has been heavily involved in sustainability in general. In the 90s, he called a group of UK hotels together and said, come on, guys, we should do more on sustainability. And one of the outcomes of that was the towel policy. And I get very frustrated about the towel policy. I think you all know what I mean. In hotels around the world, you see the note that, you know, if you have a multi-night stay, if you leave the card on the bed or leave the towel on the rack, whatever, for your multi-night stay, we will not launder the towel nightly. Few of them even follow it. And, you know, I found one hotel in Bangkok that has a measurement program of showing which housekeepers actually adhere to the program. I'm in and out of hotels a lot myself, and I do the right thing with the towel policy, and it seldom gets implemented. You know what? The consumer and the media are going to get much more savvy about calling hotels on these things. So even where we say we do something, we have to execute. So we have to do a lot more and operate more holistically, but then we need to operationalize and really figure out how to do all these things. So we need a much more holistic approach. Many hotels have very fine internal programs, and we're very supportive of those. 2 of our GSTC members are 2 of the largest hotel chains in the world. IHG has the Green Engage program, and Hilton has Lightstay. Other giants of travel have internal programs. And that's all really fabulous that they've got those. And that's really important to have, because you need the training platform, the awareness platform for all of your staff. And that's really great. Where we're talking to those hotel groups is third-party verification through certification for those hotel properties that reach a certain level of excellence, that are ready to tell the world that we're confident enough to have an auditor come in and look at us, and then confident that we can succeed, and tell the world that, you know, we've succeeded to that level, and gives more credibility to our claims. So we're great believers in third-party certification at GSTC, and we provide guidance for that through our accreditation program. But each hotel has to kind of go up a scale, and you have to start somewhere. And if you look at the GSTC criteria and you see there's 42 elements, you're not going to be able to get compliance with all 42 overnight. So you need to set targets. You need to say, these are the things we're good at right now. Here's where, let's have honest assessments internally as to what we're good at and what we're not touching, and not what we're not good at, and really work and chip away at those lists. Procurement is a very important issue on sustainability, and there are a lot of good things happening in hotels on procurement. And many hotels are really doing this well, where they're looking at their supply chains in terms of the food and the food and beverage that they serve in the dining room, at building materials, at cleaning supplies, and so forth. We need much more of that, and that should be instilled in business practice, that all the materials we buy, cleaning supplies, and all the laundry facilities, all the operational things that we have in a hotel, we should look at every aspect of that. And are we contracting with suppliers, and are we purchasing products and materials that are sustainably produced? There's eco-labeling going on in many, many sectors, and you can look for those labels as an easy way to identify who are the suppliers. So many hotels do that well. Some don't even touch it, but we really need to get at more of that procurement of materials that we use regularly in a hotel, and not just look at, is our hotel operation sustainably in terms of recycling and reduction of plastics and managing the energy and so forth. But again, that whole supply chain. We're spending a great deal of time and effort at looking at the supply chain where the hotel is the supplier to someone else. Tour operators are increasingly looking, recognizing that if they want to green their supply chain, if they want to contract with hotels that are sustainable, do they want to analyze and survey all the hotels that they would potentially work with to see how sustainable they are? That's extremely difficult to do. So we're creating a shortcut route to that, where if a hotel is certified sustainable, then the buyers of hotel space, whether they're corporate buyers, they're tour operators for leisure or business, whoever they are, if they can easily see they can easily see if the hotel is certified, then that's an indication, strong verification through third-party verification that the hotel is operating sustainably. We're really pushing that. So in the same way that entities that were modeled after that might exist in a hotel procurement chain, or a particular hotel might have for eco-labeled procurement, we're looking at the hotel as something that's procured by others. And what I mean by the eco-labels on procurement is, in the hotel industry, some hotels are now choosing food that's eco-labeled. Rainforest Alliance Fair Trade Coffee, MSC and ASC eco-labeled fish and seafood. Iberostar hotels in Spain and Caribbean and Mexico announced about a year and a half ago they have targets for all of their hotels that they're procuring fish and seafood that's MSC eco-labeled. That's what I'm talking about. We're talking to the buyers of your hotel space about selecting hotels, and we're getting a lot of momentum from that. There's a Canadian tour operator called Transat that's very active in the Caribbean, and they only feature hotels that are certified. And we're talking to many outbound tour operators and packagers of travel around the world that are moving in this direction, where they want to show preferential contracting to hotels. So in the first and second sessions of this series, we talked about tour operators getting preferential contract by Royal Caribbean and other cruise lines at the ports and destinations. And we're applying that same model in hotels and getting a lot of pickup with it. The marketing of sustainability is rather tricky business, and I want to spend a few minutes talking about that. The market demand for sustainability by travelers is I think very poorly understood. The global market research we've seen in the past 5 or 10 years has been largely done by major global players like Booking.com, TripAdvisor, TUI Group that Ian is here with. And in all cases, they've seen in all markets gradual increase in traveler interest in sustainable products. But the actual purchasing decision by the traveler is not really convincing to many businesses that the traveler really cares. And this is why I say it's tricky, and you really have to look deep at the data and really think hard about the customer experience. What we're seeing is that at point of purchase, not many travelers are calling and asking, for a sustainable hotel or a sustainable other component. But increasingly, when they arrive at the destination, when they arrive in the hotel, their expectations are higher and higher, and it's growing and growing and growing. And I think we're going to see an amazing tipping point here in the next few years, because everywhere in the world, the market research shows that anyone under the age of 35 feels very passionate about fixing the world and taking action. And I mean, actually, we've been saying that for about 5 years. So that's just gradually getting bigger. So it's probably, you know, to a higher age. So we could probably say now that practically anybody under the age of 40 is more concerned than. And so we're going to see a tipping point as those people kind of go up and new generations come in. The impacts of climate change become more and more apparent. Yeah, we don't see a lot of point of purchase, clear behavior in the purchasing decision. But again, the customers are more and more asking for it. So we need to create product and create services that have the sustainability cooked in, because more and more they're going to be asking for it. More and more they're going to be asking questions, not just what is your policy, but are you really enforcing it? Another aspect of marketing that I like to talk about is the fact that the term sustainability typically does not do very well. Responsible travel resonates better with travelers. You really have to kind of play with your product type and your customer type as to how you should talk about it. But there's a lot of literature on that, and we don't have time to get into the detail of any of these things, but I just want to make the point that sustainability itself, the word, does not play very well. But what does play well are the attributes of sustainability, to talk about authenticity, to talk about your community engagement, to talk about your staff engagement and so forth. So that's a key piece of the marketing of it, is to talk about it in the right way. There's also a huge phenomenon of greenhushing, a relatively new term where some research has come out, especially from University of Surrey in the UK, that found that many hotels don't like to talk about their sustainability because they fear there's too many questions to be asked about it or whatever, some other obstacles. But that's a sad state, because the traveler does want to know, and they're going to increasingly want to know. Now, you know, so let's say even if a small portion of travelers are super motivated to really learn, and many travelers aren't thinking about it so much, again, that group of people who care is growing, but you want information available somehow to those people and to the media, so that the person who's really motivated to learn can find it on your website. What are you really doing? Be humble and honest about what you're doing. I want to say something about, for those of you who have influence, I know we have some people on the call with government and trade associations and so forth, where you have influence on these kinds of things. Let's stop thinking about hotel quality purely as comfort and luxury and convenience. Sustainability can be put into hotel star rating system and how hotels talk about themselves more generally. In most of the world, it's at the national level or a state level to have, you know, a scheme where a hotel is rated 3 stars, 4 stars, whatever. More progressive places in the world are now starting to put sustainability in. Let's add sustainability, but let's add sustainability to all aspects of our communications with our traveler. I'm going to, let's see, how are we doing on time? I'm going to stop there. I might come back with a couple more slides later in the Q&A, we'll see, but I want to get Ian talking. Ian Corbett is with TUI Group, and we've invited TUI Group to join us for a couple of reasons. There's a lot of hotel people we could have invited to join us, but we wanted Ian and TUI for a couple of reasons. One, they're enormous. They've got tremendous reach. But a key piece is that Ian is engaged in 2 sides of the hotel business that are very important. TUI Group owns many hotels, and they contract with many other hotels. So they're both a provider of hotel services and they're a contractor with hotels. So Ian's going to talk about both aspects of their own hotels, what they're doing with sustainability. And they're doing very comprehensive work at TUI across all of their business lines. And certainly at hotels, they've had years of setting targets on hotel sustainability. Ian's going to talk about that. So one of my frustrations, our frustrations, I think, with a lot of hotels, the bigger chains in the world, is the franchise model kind of makes things problematic, because even if the brand group wants to kind of go in this direction, they have to convince all of their hotel property owners around the world to move. And this is where Ian and TUI's model is quite interesting because they own hotels, and so they can test some ideas. And they've been doing this development for several years. And Ian's going to talk about how they will apply that to contracting. So, Ian Corbett, TUI Group, coming to us from the UK. Thank you, Ian, for joining us, and over to you.
Thank you, Randy, and great to be here. I will just share my screen. I've got a couple of slides to run through, and then I know we've got time for Q&A at the end. Okay, so let's not worry about the slides. They're not so important anyway. I'll just talk through it for you. So so the first thing that I wanted to highlight was following on from what Randy had said, was that when we made it a strategic priority for us, we recognized the first thing that we needed to do was to put our own hotels in order. So we always start with the hotels that we own and operate ourselves, and then we share the benefits of that learning right across our supply chain. So within our strategy, we set ourselves a goal to deliver 10 million greener and fairer holidays by 2020. And what we mean by that is a holiday where the customer stays in a hotel that's been certified to a GSTC standard. And before the pandemic, we had great success in that, and we actually achieved it a year early. So in 2019, we got to our 10 million target. We also count the number of hotels that we contract that are certified and set our buying and purchasing teams targets on that. And again, pre-pandemic, we were up to nearly 1,700 of our hotels that are now certified. But just another metric which is really important to us is the number of our own hotels that are certified, and we're up to 80% now of our own hotels. Now 100% is a bit of a stretch because of the change in the program, but we believe that 80 should be upwards of 90% of our own hotels that are certified. But good progress. If you think 10 million customers a year are now staying at a hotel that we can hand on heart say that we know to be sustainable, and in terms of the range, over 1,700. And the reason that we focus on it is, I come back to a point that Randy made, that we don't see this as an add-on to the way that we think hotels should operate. We see it simply as evidence of good management. And we find that when we compare the performance of certified to non-certified hotels, we see two things that are critical. The first thing is that the certified hotels, on average, save about 12% a year on energy costs. And the second thing is that we see that they consistently deliver higher quality and customer satisfaction. So the case really becomes compelling if you can deliver cost savings on the one hand and an improved guest experience on the other, and you've got the data to back that up, then it starts to become a much more sort of a sellable proposition when it comes to your hotel partners. But that's all well and good. In terms of how you make it a practical reality, I think we've done two things that I would highlight. The first one is that we've put it into the contract. So our own minimum contractual standards include contractual clauses that are based on the GSTC criteria. We also make sure we're a global player. We make sure that we have one contract that applies whichever market it is that's purchasing the hotel. So we're aligned across markets. We've got simplified standards based on the GSTC. The second thing is that for hotels for whom it's reasonable, so for us, we think it's medium and upwards large hotels, we mandate the need to get certified to GSTC standard. So the reason that we focus on certification is because we believe that it's the best way to drive the improved operational performance. Like Randy said, it has everything in that you can think of when it comes to sustainability, and it's simply not practical for us to invent our own process and audit system to check hotel sustainability performance when there is something so useful and comprehensive as the GSTC criteria already in existence. So we focus on certification, and as I say, our medium and large size hotel partners are expected to get themselves certified. We obviously provide a lot of support for that. And again, it's really important to us that when we're talking to our hotel partners, we're talking the language of business and we're talking partner to partner. So we talk about the benefits that they will see, the cost reduction and the improved customer experience that we spoke about. We talk about how it enables them to support the destination and therefore enriches the experience outside of the hotel and the economic benefit that stems from that. We talk about how sadly, as Randy mentioned, it is still a unique selling point. There are not enough hotels certified, so those that go through the process stand out. And then finally, it helps future-proof their business, because this is the way that the industry is going. You have the opportunity to lead. It enables you to follow the local legislation and regulations, which are either in place or coming down the track. So there's lots of reasons that we believe this is in the interests of the hotel to get certified, because of the benefits it will offer to them. But in addition, obviously that in itself isn't enough. We also provide a partner website, an online portal where we can give hotel partners access to to sort of relevant sustainability documents. We can share the best practice of hotels with their peers. We can also include information on how to prepare them, how to get prepared for certification. And we're developing a marketplace where suppliers of sustainable solutions can access our hotel partners to advertise to them. So this kind of web platform that provides information, support, guidance, and hopefully, as I say, the intention is it'll develop into a bit more of a community of practice, and we can have that peer-to-peer learning going on as well. The other aspect to it is, as again, picking up on what Randy mentioned, we also provide additional guidance to the hot topics at the moment. So we've developed specific guidance around hotel partners, and we've also worked in partnership with Futurus in Germany to develop a sustainable food manual. Because again, that's something that's really important to us, is that we don't pretend to be the experts in sustainability. We provide the information that comes from partners who are the experts to our audience, our hotel partners. So yes, we produce some information, but where possible, we like to partner with experts in that particular field, such as Futurus when it comes to food. I think the other aspect which I draw an attention to, which might be interesting to think about, is creating an awards program to highlight the best performers. And we've done this quite successfully in TUI, and we categorized it around lower carbon, reducing waste, celebrating local, and one for support of our TUI Care Foundation. And those awards obviously enable you to celebrate the best performers, give those leading in their field something to aspire to, but also it's a really effective way to generate great marketing content, because you can use the entries to the awards as the basis to then find out more information and use that in your marketing and communications. And that's where I want to kind of come to next, because in terms of the operational performance, in terms of the guest experience, there's clear benefits there. But we also offer our certified hotel partners extra marketing benefits to enable that work that they've done to help generate and drive sales. So our certified hotels benefit from a filter on the website so that you can filter your search results to only bring back certified hotels. We add extra editorial copy to bring the idea of certification to life with examples of some of the things that they're doing. Lots of focus around food, which is a topic that we know our guests are super engaged on, but also around staff and community, etc. So again, just to echo what Randy said, sustainability in and of itself is a quite difficult concept for a lot of consumers to get their heads around. But when you start talking about what it means, when you start talking about the attributes, then they get it and engage with it much more. So that extra support, and that's something that we want to do more and more of, because we believe that sustainability is just part and parcel of a quality guest experience. So we look at it as part of the quality management process. So what next for us? I just pause on that for a second, because we have got a strategy that was 2015 to 2020, and we'll share a link to our latest report that shows our progress on that. Hotels is just part of it. We have a massive focus on our environmental footprint, as you can imagine, because we're also a significant operator of airlines and cruise ships. And we also have a big focus in terms of our work through our TUI Care Foundation and the amount of money we can raise to support that. So the strategy that we'll share brings you up to date to the end of 2020, but we're just about to launch our new strategy. And so I just wanted to give you a flavor for what we see as the next things the way we need to focus. So first of all, I think that helping suppliers on their journey from pre-certification to certification, and then celebrating the leaders in the field post-certification, is something that we're really interested in. How we can do a better job of being more transparent with our consumers to really enable them to make more sustainable choices. As I say, how to explain the concept and help customers to easily navigate to more sustainable choices. That's a massive opportunity for us. We take over 20 million customers a year on holiday. 10 million of them are staying in a certified hotel at the moment. What can we do to engage more of the other 10 million, if you like? Yes, there will always be a percentage who aren't interested, but we believe that to be at best 20% of consumers. So we believe 80% of our customer base are either really engaged with sustainability, probably about 20%, or the other 60% are engaged if you make it easy for them and you explain exactly what it means, and that will enhance their experience. So consumer engagement, massive focus. And then finally, two other areas. One is around upskilling and reskilling colleagues and hotel partners, because it isn't an easy subject to get your head around. There's lots of things still that's evolving. So we want to make, as I say, access to the knowledge and training much more widely available within and outside of TUI. And then finally, of course, the road towards net carbon zero and what that means for TUI and the role that we have to play, not just in hotels, but also cruise lines and aviation as well. So that strategy, I think you'll see as soon as we resume holiday operations in a meaningful way, we've got the strategy ready and we'll launch it. So it's coming to you later this year, but I do urge you to look at, as I say, the report that we'll share, because it does cover the breadth of the work that we do, not just in hotels. But this is about hotels. So for now, I'll pause there and hand back over so we can think about some questions.
Ian, thank you very much. That was really excellent. We do have a lot of questions. Randy, thank you as well. Great session. We do have quite a few sessions, so if you both want to come back on, that'd be great. I'm going to start with one that's a good follow-up, Ian, to your presentation. This is from Kelly. How has the GSTC assisted you in TUI's sustainable journey?
So, as I said, the biggest success we've had is in being able to take the criteria. Let's go one step back. So the GSTC criteria is then applied by a certification body, which then can audit and make sure that the standards are being met. So by providing the basis for that overall structure, it enables us to effectively audit, if you like, our supply chain at scale globally. And without that assurance, we would not be able to work at the speed or the scale that we've been able to. So that industry standards is extremely important for us, because it's the absolute foundation for how we operate our own hotels, but also, as I say, branch out through the supply chain.
So those standards are really critical along, I assume, with the performance indicators as well.
Exactly.
This one, I'm going to ask that this is kind of a little bit of a two-part question. There's two questions here that I think are in the same vein. One from Nia regarding the topic of human rights and accommodation sector. What questions can tour operators and guests ask to ensure there are no human rights violations taking place in a hotel? Randy, this is probably more, I suppose, for you. And then Stefan's question, which is fairly long. I'll just try to paraphrase it. He's talking about inclusivity, equality, and dignity. Isn't there often a conflict of interest when thinking of legal compliance versus cultural heritage and local cultures versus protection of minorities? What's GSTC's position on this matter? So this is probably a four-pronged question, and I'll bat it over to you, Randy. Thank you.
Yeah, there are a lot of pieces to it, to both of these. Thank you. But I think there's some commonality in Stefan's question about the issue of GSTC's position on LGBTQ and national laws or local laws, and Nia's questions about slavery and the question she has the example of hotel ownership in Myanmar. In the hotel standard and in how we apply the standard, we cannot expect the hotel to impact local law or national law. They can have some impact, but we can't expect them to do that directly or certainly quickly. So within our destination criteria for public policy, we have those things stated more explicitly. LGBT is mentioned explicitly in the destination criteria. All of our criteria talk about non-discriminatory hiring for staff, but interaction with stakeholders in general of all types of minority groups. So it's in there in various ways, but when it comes to these matters of public policy, then it really belongs in the destination criteria. So in both sets of criteria at revision, we have increasingly been turning to expert organizations. So there's reference here to the code. And we have them actually specifically mentioned in a performance indicator as evidence that a hotel on the social side has trained their staff and is concerned about trafficking and slavery and so forth. We're looking to do more of that in the future revisions of the criteria, but also the evidence that we provide in the guidance for certification as to what kind of evidence to find. We want expert organizations that relate to specific criteria where there's some measurable way, in a credible, impartial, fair way to judge it. We'll add that as a way to provide evidence of compliance to criteria. We want to move more dramatically in that and more strongly in that direction. So we've already been doing it. We're going to do more of it and we're going to do better of it. Back to the hotel, a final point I want to make is that our entire system for the guidance we have of certification, well, even not just certification, but just using the standard, it's all about continuous improvement. But if you look at certification, a hotel doesn't get just certified once and that's it. They're not, they have to get renewals, and renewals of certification. There's expectation built in for improvement. And so part of that improvement would be, have a voice in the community. We actually have it built in. Criterion A10 of the hotel criteria is that your management team is engaged with the local player, with local government, and you're trying to impact change. So, we might look at certain things more deeply and, in renewals in the future and expect more and better. So these are difficult issues that both of you have raised, and they're complex issues. The social issues are always very complex, but the non-discriminatory nature issues are in the criteria, but how you really influence them. On Nia's question of hotel ownership, that's really tough. Because again, our hotel criteria are looking, how do you manage your operations today? Not how did you get here? Who are you? I'm not really sure how we'd really get at that, but certainly open for, suggestions and discussion on that. But yet at the destination level, if they set targets and incentives for local ownership and the right type of ownership, but I think your question implies some political aspect of who are the owners, what kind of attitudes do they have on social policy. That's very difficult. I don't have a glib, quick answer for that one. But thank you both for excellent questions.
They're really interesting questions, and I'm sure you could do an entire session just on those topics. We're running tight on time. I'm going to do one last question to either of you. Mass market, low-priced, all-inclusive resorts where customers stay inside the resort and don't spend time outside the resort. How does that reconcile with community benefit? These all-inclusives versus others.
Yeah, sure. Do you want me to go first on that? So it's obviously an area of concern for us. It's a significant part of our portfolio, and so there's a couple of things I bring out. One is that when we did a study called the TIM study with PwC about 4 years ago, which looked at the total impact measurement of tourism in Cyprus, and we found that between all-inclusive and non-all-inclusive, the actual economic benefit that was delivered was not that dissimilar. It was just the case that the all-inclusive hotels were providing jobs inside the hotels and sourcing, is provided that the sourcing was coming from local suppliers. The actual economic benefit that was delivered was roughly on a par with self-catering and B&B. So you'll see that in the study. However, where there is improvement to be done is in how we can encourage consumers to get off the sunbeds and get out and about and spending in the local economy, because they come with money in their pocket and are prepared to spend. But we've got to work harder in terms of how we're promoting the local products and services and activities so that they will venture out. And again, that is part of the GSTC criteria in terms of how you are promoting the local community to the guests in your hotel. So I don't deny for a second there's more work that we can do to do that, but it isn't as simple as the all-inclusive are taking away the economic benefit. It's just that benefit changes because the nature of the operation is different.
Well, and it also seems to me that all-inclusives appeal to one type of customer, and maybe a more small boutique hotel appeals to a different type of customer. So it is also appealing to the entire market, say every segment of the market.
Excellent point, Tom. I agree.
Rand, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I think in the remaining minutes, maybe we cover the questions. I thought Ian did a nice job at that.
Okay, we'll do one more.
We can talk about all these things at great length.
It is hard. This is from Daniel. It's hard for customers to trust these certification labels when large chain hotels are certified, but then they are the ones that have huge air-conditioned meeting rooms, for instance. How can a big conference hotel be truly sustainable?
Yeah, I'll pick up on that. Well, certification is not perfect. I mean, we have in our certification guidance that energy is looked at very strongly, and that there's not overheating and not over aircon. Aircon is a major contributor to greenhouse gases because of high energy. So that should not be happening. But I will also admit that our scheme is largely based on the guest experience. There are standards for meeting space and MICE. We require in the audit process that the full hotel operation is considered, but yet we don't have the specificity of the large convention. Some hotels that have so much space, it's almost like it's a little miniature convention center. And we don't have proper guidance in our system for that. There are some MICE in corporate travel standards. We're trying to figure out how to tie that all in together. But the essence of the question is, that should not happen. When certified and looking at renewals, the entire energy consumption is something that should be very carefully considered. We can't speak for all certification bodies. We know we have a directory of somewhere between 250 and 300 certification standard, or not certification, but standards for sustainability in hotels and many certifications. And there's a very wide range of quality of certification. That's not something that's talked about a great deal, but we have certainly found that in our work that by putting your certification in the name of your organization does not mean that you certify well. And we're working on providing guidance to the world on that. So that's, again, I wish I had a cleaner answer and better news on that, but everything we're doing is working towards making it all better and improve. But we're also a voluntary organization. People come voluntarily to us. We have no enforcement mechanisms on pickup. So we need more consumer demand pushing hotels for not just certification, but high quality certification.
Well, I think given the timing of this, because we've definitely going over, want to thank both of you for not only your presentations, but hanging in there for these questions. There's still quite a few questions, a lot of excellent questions that we presented. Larry?
Yeah, again, thank you, Randy and Ian. And Randy, thank you for getting with us to set this series up with GSTC. So it's fantastic. Thank you so much. We will pass on the additional questions to Ian and to Randy and get their feedback, and we'll report those back out to those that did ask the question. So again, thank you both for being here with us today. Our next webinar will be March 31st at 3 p.m. Miami time, featuring building a financial bridge out of the pandemic. The pandemic has left the global tourism industry in a financial turmoil. Governments around the world with varying success to develop financial loan guarantee programs to help travel-related business bridge the gap out of the pandemic in our tourism, tomorrow's tourism. Again, we look forward to seeing you. Want to thank our listeners for being here today. Many thanks, and especially for those all around the world. We appreciate it. We will follow up with an email with the link to it. We'll get the PDF presentations from Randy and also Ian and pass that information on to you. But again, be strong, be safe, and be healthy. And again, thanks for being with us today. Tom?
Thank you, everybody, for participating and for your questions. Ian and the TUI Group, thanks again. Randy, thank you for not only this session, but supporting and hosting this entire series. Thank you all very much. Stay safe, stay happy, and healthy.
Destination together, won't you set me free? I'll take a train, a plane, a big cruise ship. It doesn't really matter to me. Destination people always seem to find the magic and the mystery